Portus was the maritime port of Imperial Rome, so what it provided from the mid-1st century AD onwards was a huge facility for ships, seagoing ships that were coming to Rome to supply it with essential foodstuffs, materials, people and goods from across the Mediterranean region. And once you get into the 2nd century, with the great Trajanic expansion of the port, this role accelerates because the system of canals and the additional warehouses means that it's now become a major strategic resource for the city and helps feed it, clothe it and clad it in marble for the next 250, 300 years. The kinds of cargoes they would have carried varied considerably. One of the most important, of course, and which was one of the reasons that the emperors were concerned to have a port like Portus through which they could import material, was grain. Grain from Egypt and North Africa, which supplied the populace in Rome. But one has to remember also olive oil, a very important victual in antiquity, wine perhaps. One thinks of marble. All the marble used to decorate the temples and palaces of Imperial Rome came through this port system, albeit in the Fiumicino Canal a little bit further south. One thinks of slaves perhaps too. One thinks of wild beasts for the arena. One thinks of textiles. Just about anything you can imagine going into Imperial Rome in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th centuries would have come through this complex, with ships being initially in the outer Claudian basin, coming through the canal and unloading here in the Trajanic basin into those warehouses that clustered around the hexagonal basin, were then stored before eventually being transshipped into smaller boats to go up the River Tiber and eventually to be unloaded in the great system of warehouses in the southern part of the city of Rome itself, the Great Emporium.